to date with the latest from here in Europe. Back now to Doha.
Saudi Arabia has banned all demonstrations after a series of minor protests in the oil-producing eastern province. Al Jazeera could not authenticate this video, which was posted online on Saturday. It shows hundreds of protesters rallying in the eastern town of Qatif on Thursday and Friday. They've been demanding the release of all prisoners being held without trial, as well as better access to jobs. They also want less powers for the ruling Al Saud family. The protests are continuing in Bahrain. Thousands marched again to Pearl Roundabout and formed a human chain around the capital, Manama. There have been daily protests in Bahrain for the past 2 weeks, with people calling for an end to what they say is discrimination and political persecution. Oman's Sultan Qaboos has replaced 2 of his cabinet ministers after days of violent unrest. Protesters have been calling for more jobs and better political representation. Meanwhile, workers have been staging a sit-in at the main oil field in Haima to demand more investment from the state. Hundreds of protesters have rallied in the Algerian capital. Police were on standby as the crowd moved towards Martyrs Square in Algiers. Opposition parties say Abdelaziz Bouteflika's government has squandered the country's wealth. The government recently lifted a 19-year-old state of emergency and allowed opposition forces on television. More than 3 weeks have passed since the Egyptian uprising that ousted Hosni Mubarak, but the protests and the fallout go on. The former Interior Minister has pleaded not guilty to charges of money laundering and profiteering, but some claim Habib El Adli is facing the wrong charges. Shireen Tadros in Cairo explains.
First came the ousting, and now comes the justice. Habib El Adli, Egypt's former interior minister, mobbed by demonstrators shouting, "Execute him," as he was leaving court. El Adli is on trial for money laundering and profiteering. But people here want to see him tried for ordering the police to open fire on protesters during the revolution. And that's not all. This man says El Adli is responsible for setting prisoners free and deliberately causing chaos during the protests. This woman tells us it's not just El Adli, but all corrupt Interior Ministry officials who have policed with an iron fist that should stand trial. For over 10 years, Habib El Adli was the face of one of the most hated institutions here, the Interior Ministry, as well as the security apparatus that came under its command. People are still asking for that security apparatus to be dismantled. Outside state security headquarters in Cairo, that's exactly what was happening. Protesters demanding police forces leave the streets and a complete restructure of the security services. They claim now officials are going on trial. Police officers are burning and shredding any documents which could incriminate them and their bosses in the future.
They're burning all the papers behind this wall, and that's why some of us went inside and took the papers that they haven't completely burnt yet. And we're showing this evidence to the army.
Similar scenes were witnessed in the port city of Alexandria late Friday as police clashed with demonstrators outside a security building, injuring several people. Again, burnt identity cards were found by witnesses. As Egypt enters into a new era, people still want justice for the past. They see it as the only way to guarantee a different, better future. Shireen Tadros, Al Jazeera, Cairo.
Amnesty International says a self-described human rights activist is being detained in Qatar without access to a lawyer. It reports that Sultan Al-Khelaifi has been held since the 2nd of March. His lawyer, Najib Al-Nuami, says he doesn't even know why his client has been arrested.
This gentleman is Sultan Al-Khelaifi. He been detained with 3 others. It's just for expressing his own opinion, must be, because he was detained 3, 4, or 10 times already by the special security, and he's still, insisting in his own opinion. And I think the mistakes here is that there is a law, which is, I call it, really a criminal law, if I can say. The law itself is a criminal because it allows the Minister of Interior to detain anyone, anywhere, for 6 months, extendable for another 6 months, without a trial, without any lawyer. It's up to him.
Now let's catch up with the latest online activity with Imran Khan at the web desk.
Thanks, Arnold. In Libya, the government's reportedly managed to shut down the internet, and it's closely watching cyberspace. Unconfirmed reports are coming in that email, social media accounts of activists and rebels have been hacked. Now, despite those incredibly difficult conditions, information is getting out. To Twitter, the micro-blogging site next. Now, as you recall, protesters are claiming to have shot down an aircraft in Ras Naluf. Well, this tweet on how remarkable that feat was for the rebels. By the way, that warplane was shot down by a man in his 50s using the anti-aircraft gun for the first time with only one barrel working. And this rather upbeat tweet on the rebels of eastern Libya. Gaddafi forces are so weak it takes so long or they're completely unsuccessful to take back a town when fighting poorly armed opposition. And here's a question we've been asking ourselves at Al Jazeera for a while now. I have a question. Is there any Gaddafi supporter tweeters? Well, I haven't found any, but then how would they use the internet if the government has blocked it? To Egypt next. Lots going on there over the last 24 hours. Protesters have ransacked state security offices across the land. Hard drives have been removed, documents have been shredded in an effort by the security not to let documents get into the hands of the protesters. Well, that seems to have failed, though. This from Lisang. Torture chambers, shredded documents, political prisoners. Now nobody can say she or he didn't know. And in support of the new leader of Egypt, Yalla ya Assam ya Sharif, it means let's go Sharif, hit while the iron's hot. And for many of the protesters, it was the first look inside of those state security offices. Underground jail entrance at the state security found and protesters trying to open it, speechless. And staying with those attacks on state security across Egypt, this picture was posted online. It shows supposedly the inside of one of those offices. The hard drives are missing. They've been taken away by protesters. Well, don't forget, you can get involved on our website. The address, as ever, is www.aljazeera.net/English. Put your videos, stills and comments online, and we'll have all the latest from the region, live blogs from Egypt and Libya, as well as international reaction, plus reporting, analysis and opinion. That's it from us. We'll be back later with more, but for now, back to you.
Thanks, Imran. We are going to take a break right now, but still to come on this news hour. From people power to cyber power, we speak to the so-called hacktivists targeting corporations and governments around the world. And scores injured as peacekeepers and government forces seized back key positions in the Somali capital.
Qatar, through Qatar Petroleum and its partners, has been adopting ambitious plans aimed to expand its exports of natural gas in its liquefied form into remote international markets and to supply piped gas to regional markets. In implementing those plans, Qatar has been benefiting from its strategic geographic location and the relatively low cost of producing gas from its territories. Qatar Petroleum.
To invest in a country with the largest youth population as compared to the EU countries, please push the button. For more power to your global business, invest in Turkey.